One D&D is coming whether we want it or not, and with that comes sweeping changes to the classes that we know and love. And no other class is more beloved than the Druid.
Boo!
What the?
Nobody likes the Druid.
What do you mean nobody loves the Druid?
Crawford said it's the least popular class in 5e.
That is complete...
The Druid is the least played class in 5th edition
Oh,
of the classes that are in the player's handbook.
Why are we making this video again? The recent Unearthed Arcana gives us a playtest for the new Druid in One D&D, and I was, let's just say, not impressed. Anyways, now that I've had time to wrap my head around it, I wanted to talk about the Druid, how it currently stands in 5e, and how I believe it could be made better in One D&D. But since I spike my coffee with copious amounts of sugar and am prone to emotional outbursts, I figured it would be good to have someone with a more level head to help navigate the topic. So let me just go ahead and conjure my old celestial friend to help keep my emotions in check. Humba Wumba Padumba!
And that's why Die Hard is not a... what?
What?
Where am I?
Jake from J&J Tabletop, you're celestial?
What? No, what are you... Why am I here?
Oh, oops, I used Conjure Content, not Conjure Celestial. Easy mistake. Sorry about that, but... Actually, you know what? This works out. I was just about to talk about the One D&D playtest for Druid.
Oh, that's gonna get me fired up. Don't get me started, Lee.
Oh, I'm getting you started. What do you think about the playtest?
Well, I tell you...
Wait. On second thought, maybe we should organize our thoughts a little bit.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Let's break things down into 3 sections. First, let's take a quick look at what we think Wizards of the Coast was trying to do with this playtest. This way we have a point of reference for the rest of the video.
The next section being, did they achieve their goals and what issues we have with what they came up with? Although, I think based on our introduction, you can probably tell our thoughts.
But we're not just here to complain about things, we want to be part of the solution. So in section 3, we're going to talk about how we think that Wizards of the Coast could achieve the goals that we think they have.
So with that out of the way, let's start off with what they were trying to achieve with this new Druid.
Yeah, so I see 2 goals here. Number 1, I think they're trying to make Wild Shape a viable combat option for every Druid to play, and not just Moon Druids. And then I also think that Wizards of the Coast is just trying to maybe simplify things, because I do think Druids tend to be one of the more crunchy classes of the game.
I think both Jake and I agree that these are good goals to have. While Druids are incredibly versatile as they stand in 5th edition, let's be honest with ourselves, the main gimmick of the Druid is to wild shape, so it's probably ideal to make it usable for every Druid rather than just the Moon Druid. And as for simplifying it, I'm pretty sure that we speak for everyone when we say that no one would miss having to reference 5 different books to find everything you need to play Druid effectively.
So, did they achieve their goal? In 1 word, no. In 2 words, heck no. And in 3 words, maybe you can get creative and tell us in the comments section, because to me, Wild Shape, historically speaking, has always been more about utility and creativity, which creativity is my favorite part about this game. And this is some kind of like homogenized version that takes something that's supposed to be beautifully creative, and it's just this wonderful tool to tell great stories at the table, and reduces it to this sort of awkward, like preteen, you know, I'm not a girl, but not yet a woman kind of a thing. And yeah, you know, look like a snake, but you can't do anything that a snake does. Look like an elephant, but you have a climb speed. It's just kind of silly, because players are going to ask their dungeon masters if they can do things that their form implies they can do, but in this version, dungeon masters technically have no rule support for it. The trade-off is you give up your ability to cast spells, you know, one of the main things a Druid does, and you do that for a movement speed and extra attack.
Speaking of Wild Shape, if all Druids got hit with the nerf Bat, then Moon Druids just got hit with the nerf Nuke, because in this playtest, the Moon Druid uses the same exact Wild Shape stat block as every other Druid, with very minor differences. The first minor difference is an incredibly small amount of abjuration spells that they can cast while in Wild Shape, as well as the fact that they can deal an extra dice of damage at level 10. And that's pretty much it. Sure, I can admit that the Moon Druid is the most powerful Druid subclass in 5th edition and probably needed to be nerfed at least a little bit, but this is just jumping from one end of the spectrum to the other. Druids go from technically having access from over 150 different beast forms to having a total of 3, which is a ridiculous oversimplification of an otherwise amazing class. It feels like rather than lift other subclasses up to meet the Moon Druid, they simply pushed all druids down a hill and said good luck. The honest truth is if the druid stays as it is currently in the playtest, then no one will ever use it because there's simply no reason to. Other casters can do everything this druid can, but better. And before anyone says, oh, a class can't be good at everything, right now the druid is good at nothing. Not to mention the fact that druid is the least popular class, as stated by Crawford himself in the video for this playtest. If anything, for that one reason alone, they should have made the druid much more interesting to drive more players to it, not force them away.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all for making things easier to use because I will admit that there is a certain level of clunkiness that does exist with the current druid. However, I think if you want to make this more approachable, I really don't think you need to do much. Which leads us right into how we would fix things. I think step one is to just kind of ignore the One D&D playtest that they just released and use the existing rules for Wild Shape. There's a mechanical benefit for using it, and I think all they need to do is just organize the information a little bit better, and they're going to be in really good shape.
I understand the reason for wanting to change how Wild Shape works, right? It can be clunky like Jake mentioned, it can be overwhelming with the amount of options that you get, and it can make druids arguably overpowered in terms of versatility, but I feel like that's what druids are meant to be, at least in my opinion. Control casters who have incredible versatility with their Wild Shape and spellcasting. As for being overwhelming, I think the solution for that's easy enough.
Which beautifully leads us into step two, and that's just reorganize the information a little bit better. Throughout the entirety of the One D&D playtest, they have consistently listed suggested spells to prepare whenever you take a long rest as a caster. Why not just do that for Wild Shape forms? Most players only have a tendency to use a handful of go-to forms that they like anyways, and in this situation you could just list in the Druid class info when certain forms become available. You could even put stat blocks for certain creatures in the Druid info itself. Now you wouldn't even have to have the terrible burden of going to the back of the book to find out how your stuff works. Like a caster does.
And that leads us into our third section, which is let druids
be tiny! This isn't game breaking just because some neckbeard on Reddit said it was, okay?
Whoa, buddy, calm down. Okay, take a breather. Just calmly tell us about it.
Okay, yeah, I can do this. All right, if you're the dungeon master and you design a dungeon that your druid wants to explore as a mouse, let them do it, but make them roll stealth checks. They might fail those stealth checks. And the consequences of failing a stealth check behind enemy lines when you are by yourself, particularly as a druid who has a whole bunch of things they can do, is greater when you're a low-level druid. This raises the tension that you can use and create as a dungeon master. And it also raises the coolness of the druid player that gets to pull this sort of thing off.
Oh yeah, I mean, screw my players. If the player decides they want to sneak in as a rat and somebody sees a rat where it shouldn't be, you can be damn sure they're getting the boot. Consequences make the game fun for everybody, so don't forget that. Now, those were our thoughts on what they provided, and our changes were pretty much just leave it as is, and that's not really fun. So we wanted to provide some actual value here, and we're going to actually go into an unannounced extra step 4 and talk about some cool ideas they could use instead of what they did.
If the goals are to make things more approachable and to make Wild Shape a viable combat option for all druids, I think that's very achievable. What if it worked sort of like Eldritch Invocations work for the Warlock? Now follow me here. In the Druid table, you just put a column called Forms Known, and that just goes up as you level up. And then each form that a Druid could choose from has certain prerequisites, such as level. Personally, I've never been a big fan of the whole Beast of the Land, Beast of the Air, Beast of the Sea stuff. I feel like it just oversimplifies things and it reduces the impact that player choices have. So the forms that we create or the forms that we use, I believe, should be legitimate animals that have unique features that give a player a reason to choose them. And this is going to form the base of your feature. You can even have forms that are unique to certain subclass choices, which further emphasizes just how cool and special it is to play that type of druid. You can even then honor the Moon Druid as being the best at this, like it always has been, and give them a whole leg or wing or fin up on the competition.
Yeah, we actually came up with a list of potential forms for druids to become based on their subclasses. Now, keep in mind that none of these forms we mention are balanced in any way currently. This is all just a thought experiment, and they will need to be adjusted if someone tries to use them. Now, Druid as it stands has 7 subclasses: Dreams, Stars, Spores, Land, Moon, Sheperd, and Wildfire. So, starting off with Dreams, a Circle of Dreams Druid could turn into a different variation CR of Fey creature, seeming as how the entire subclass heavily pulls influence from the Fey realm with their class features.
The Circle of Stars Druid could easily continue their starry form and augment it, much like a Warlock might make their Eldritch Blast more powerful. But if you really wanted to lean into a form for them, maybe you create some kind of like mini Sphinx or something like that. I think that could be cool.
The Circle of Spores is a unique one, but you could very easily make the wild shape something to do with Twig Blights, Myconids, or even...
A troll.
What?
You could wild shape into a
Sure,
troll.
why not? You might even be able to wild shape into a troll.
Sorry, I got excited. The Circle of Land could maybe wild shape into varying levels of like large creatures or dinosaurs, maybe like a rhino or like an ankylosaurus.
Or even pick animals that are linked somehow to the land type you chose. Arctic could be polar bears, seals, or even a yeti named Eddie that likes spaghetti. Did you write that?
Maybe. Or for a coast druid, you could maybe be a wizard. Eh? Yeah, maybe a giant toad, a water elemental, or maybe a manticore.
Desert could very simply be something like a fire snake or a giant scorpion.
For the forest, perhaps you are some kind of royal lion that might be a bit scared. Or maybe like an awakened tree, a brown bear, or like a giant elk might be appropriate. That's fine.
Grasslands could very easily be wolves, lions, triceratops, or things that you might see roaming grassy plains.
And a mountain druid could maybe be a giant eagle, a saber-toothed tiger, or maybe like a griffin or something like that.
Swamp, thinking crocodiles, thinking giant crocodiles, thinking bigger crocodiles, or just snakes.
The Underdark is where it could get fun and weird. You could maybe do like an ooze, or like an onkeg, or an Umber Hulk, because Umber Hulk.
Meanwhile, the Circle of the Moon could still be the king of wild shape by allowing them to wild shape into stronger versions of beasts like Jake mentioned earlier. Like instead of a wolf, they could get something like an empowered wolf called a dire wolf, or a dire bear, or maybe if you're feeling up for a meme, an owl bear.
I see what you did there, Lee, and I love it. Looking at the Sheperd Druid, they're all about that spiritual communion with nature, so why not tie that into their wild shape features as well? Perhaps you could even tie it to their totem choice, like a spiritual hawk or a bear, or perhaps because they even have some Fey themes, maybe a unicorn? I don't know. They also have different spiritual summons which you could augment with these forms known invocations, if you will, and get creative.
But that brings us finally to the Wildfire Druid, which I'm sure everyone expected, but just give Wildfire Druids access to some sort of fire elemental form. I mean, I really shouldn't need to explain why that makes sense. It just makes sense.
It sure does, Lee. But I sure would like to turn the heat up on that one, though.
Hi there, this is Lee from the future, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to apologize for that terrible joke Jake just made. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
These are just some of our suggestions for how you could maybe tweak wild shape for druids moving forward. But all of this stuff needs balancing, and we would like your help in the comments section if you have any ideas that you think could make this better.
Thanks for hanging out, Jake, but it looks like we are just about out of time. Do you want to tell everyone where to find you before you have to go?
Sure. You could find me at...
Oof, so close. You can check Jake out at J&J Tabletop on both Twitter and YouTube, links in the description below. You have my permission to click off this video right now and go subscribe to Jake. He is super nice, has amazing content, and honestly, the guy deserves it. So if you aren't already subscribed, be sure to take some time and go check him out. What? Why are you still here? I told you to go subscribe to Jake already. What persuades you to remain here on this ending YouTube video? The credits are rolling, the lights are fading. You're still here, and I don't understand why. There's no secret for you here. Okay, we can just stand here in awkward silence and until you subscribe to Jake and me. We're really doing this, aren't we? Okay. How long can I stand here? Existence is pain. Why am I doing this? Oh, I can't believe I'm still doing this. Why are you here? What are you waiting for? Just go! I am wasting so much time just standing here talking to a camera in my basement, hoping the world will hear me scream out into this non-existent world, hoping that someone sees me for what I am, hoping that someone acknowledges my existence, and I am nothing. The video ended like 2 minutes ago, guys. Honestly, I don't know why you're still here. Oh no, now I'm ruining my Pringles! Pizza Pringles are the best. I have my life together, alright. Okay, you win. I'm gonna go now.